Victim. It has become a current label and description for an event that happened in the past. And it is a label that keeps us focused on a moment instead of the whole person. There are many moments that take our breath away, moments that push us forward, and moments that cause us to pause. When I see these pinwheels representing Child Abuse Prevention Month, I pause. I pause because to me, they represent moments of trauma. In my work, I want to understand how helping professionals are impacted when they work with people who've experienced trauma. I've worked primarily with counselors. And when I asked them how they define trauma, this is what they said. They saw trauma as existing on a spectrum, as a negative event that is so horrible that a person can't quite shake it or get rid of it. And they said trauma changes a person. And it's very personal and subjective, meaning that what I experience as trauma may not be the same as you or the person sitting next to you. It is estimated that 70% of adults have experienced or been exposed to at least one type of trauma. Those types of trauma range from an event to a set of circumstances that is experienced as physically, mentally, or life-threatening. And it leaves long-lasting effects on a person's physical and mental health, their ability to socially interact with others, and their spiritual well-being. And for our students, it means that school is also impacted. When I looked at the statistics for youth under the age of 18, it's estimated that 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will experience sexual abuse before they graduate from high school. It means that in a class of 24 students where there are 12 girls and 12 boys, that at least 3 of those girls and 2 of the boys will experience sexual abuse. And to me, it means that at least 5 of the students in my daughter's 6th grade classroom will experience sexual abuse or have already been sexually abused. Trauma. It's that unimaginable, unexplainable moment that causes us to pause. Yet for that person who experienced the trauma, they are potentially forever paused at the label of victim. Within our court, children, and legal services agencies, the person who experienced that trauma is referred to as victim. The word victim is used in case notes, police records, during court testimony, even in the names of agencies designed to help. Victim literally means a person who has suffered a destructive act. It describes a person who has been hurt, tortured, or oppressed. But that label of victim has become a current description for that person whose experience of trauma happened in the past, and it is not a label they asked for nor consented to receive. And that label of victim has the potential from keeping people from getting help. This was made most clear to me in a story one of my students shared with me. She said that as she worked as a counseling intern at a college counseling center, the clients often would not tell her about their trauma because they feared being labeled a victim. And research tells us that when trauma is not fully addressed, the person's ability to make progress diminishes, and they are at even greater risk for mental and physical illness. So I wonder, what if our use of victim only perpetuates the victimhood of that person who experienced that trauma? And what if our use of victim keeps that person tethered to a past event rather than helping them move forward? In a New York Times article, Oprah shared she used 135 episodes to focus solely on childhood sexual abuse. She did this to raise awareness, to show what the long-lasting effects were, but she feels she failed. Despite Oprah's best efforts, the language of childhood sexual abuse has not shifted from victim to considering the whole person. As I interviewed counseling students, I asked them what it was like to sit with and provide counseling to people who had experienced trauma. They shared with me that those stories hit them like a wave, that their chests felt heavy and their eyes became watery. Yet they also said they felt great compassion and hope in the people's resiliency and strength and their ability to share those stories of trauma with them. I'm reminded of a poem by William Blake on another's sorrow. Can I see another's woe and not be in sorrow too? Can I see another's falling tear and not be in sorrow too? My answer is no. I can't, and I'm not going to ask you to either. The next time someone shares their story of trauma with you, remember that victim is a label for an experience that happened in that person's past. Do not hold them to that limited label, because when we do, we begin to separate pieces from the whole. Remember, we are not victims. We are more than survivors. We have all experienced trauma, and we all have names. Let's not hold ourselves hostage to that label of victim which keeps us tied to the past. Let's allow ourselves the time and space to write our own complete stories. Perhaps when we begin to shift our language and focus from victim to considering the whole person, we will begin to change how we talk about trauma through one word, one story, one moment at a time. And as you listen with your open hearts and open minds to our stories of trauma, remember to focus on our whole person instead of just a moment.